All right, folks. So this is Roach J. He has a channel on YouTube. We
Nice to meet
shared
you.
we shared his work before, and because of him, I would say you disrupted your police department quite a bit after they kind of tried to harass you, right?
Yeah, they were harassing other people in my town, and I just kept hearing stories. And we had some bad cops when I was a kid, and I always felt like I didn't know enough about my rights when I was younger. And so, some of the things that happened when I was a kid, a lot of people know the "I don't answer questions" video. Well, the cop in that video, Jackman, he harassed me all the time when I was a kid. So it was one of those things that I wish I could go back now and change it. And it just kind of escalated where now I've taught myself the law. And when I heard them doing it to people in town now, the new police force that we had, I just kind of took it upon myself to give the chief the old middle finger
Or and
just to
uh,
see what he would do.
and that was Chief Jones, right?
Yeah, William Jones.
You want to tell us a little bit about William Jones from since that day to where he's at now?
So William Jones was he used to be a deputy warden at one of the prisons. I don't know if it's the NECC, the Northeast Missouri Correctional Center, or it's the women's prison in Vandalia. I forget what that one's actually called, but he was the deputy warden, I believe, at one of those prisons for a while until I was told he was walked out for inappropriate behavior. I believe that was at the women's prison, is the story that people say. Everything on that's allegedly. From there, he went and worked at the Vandalia, Missouri Police Department. And while there, they needed a chief, and there became like this battle for chief. And he got mad and tried to like slander the other guy allegedly that was running for chief. So they kind of were going back and forth. Well, the other guy found out that Jones had been faking his timesheet allegedly. That there's actually, you can see the suit because Jones ended up suing the city for wrongful termination or something like that. And he was allegedly forging his hours, like just saying he was on the clock and then going home. And from what I read in the paperwork, he would clock in, but then not be able to be accessed by the radio when they would try and contact him. Well, all of the stuff that came out from his wrongful termination and everything, Vandalia, Missouri now doesn't even have a police department. So it's like, in
Wow.
my opinion, he kind of killed their police department there. So they're covered by the county now instead of being covered by a city police department. Well, then from there, at some point, he ended up in Louisiana, Missouri, where I live. And he was just a regular patrol cop, and he kind of slithered his way up the ladder. And they pushed out, in my opinion, the woman we had that was a chief. She was a pretty good chief. She was a cop when I was a kid, just a regular patrol cop. And she would always, like, if I was out and about at 11 o'clock when I was like 14, 15, we really weren't supposed to be out that late. It's after curfew. She would just stop and talk to us instead of messing with us. She was a good cop, in my opinion. And then she was the chief. But stuff happened, some political stuff, and she ended up stepping away. So there was an opening in the chief spot, and he kind of made friends with the council and ended up taking that spot. Is kind of what I feel like I saw. I don't know all the behind the scenes stuff because Missouri is really strict when they go into those executive sessions. No one really knows what's being said, and so they went into executive session one night. Next thing we know, Jones is the chief, and Penrod, who's another officer that's involved in all my situation, he became, I believe, the deputy chief or captain. It was whatever title they gave him. It was the second in command. And then there was another officer that was involved with them, Embley, who was the canine officer. And he was, in my opinion, the biggest predator out of them all. He like, I think it made him horny to mess with people and have that authority over them that he perceived he had. And so it just, through that, hearing stories, I just decided that I needed to step it up and maybe give them the finger, see what happened. And they kind of played into my game, to be completely honest, because I knew what I was doing and I knew what would come, but they just kind of played into it.
That's the video where you gave Chief Jones the finger, then he pulls you over. You went and made a complaint regarding that stuff, and other stuff came out regarding Chief Jones and stuff that happened at his apartment where I think it was his girlfriend's brother actually passed away from a drug overdose, and the drugs were found inside Chief Jones's apartment where those drugs were actually stolen from a police locker. Am I correct?
So what I've been told, and I only know what has basically been put out with it, but his girlfriend who I perceive the girl that he was with. She's about 27 now, I believe. He's in his late 50s. I mean, he could have been her father. I think, in my opinion, he found her on some dating site or something and preyed on her. Used his, knew she was addicted to drugs because she has, from what I can tell, a pretty troubled, childhood and stuff. But I think both her parents were in and out of the criminal justice system themselves, and I think one of them was locked up in prison, in the women's prison. I think her mom was, and then her dad, I think he's either passed away or he was in prison too. So she's had a pretty rough life. Well, he preyed on that, and the stories I've been told are that he was giving her fentanyl because that was what her drug of choice was, and her brothers were meth addicts, and supposedly her brothers, one of them was going to move down to Springfield and wanted to take their sister with them to all go get clean. Well, that would have meant that Jones was going to lose his girlfriend. And so the suspected thing that this is the town vibe, and what a lot of people feel that I've heard is that Jones spiked their meth with fentanyl.
Wow.
And so, and the one brother that's still alive, he actually overdosed the week prior to when both of them overdosed and one died. The one that's still alive, he actually overdosed the week prior and was found outside on the corner. So our hospital in town, if you look up on the Google Maps, the hospital is like right here, and literally the side parking lot of the hospital is Jones's like apartment building he lived in's backyard. So literally the corner, and then you can turn into the hospital parking lot. And they
Wow.
put him on the corner right there and just left his body, allegedly, because
Damn.
it's supposedly the week prior he overdosed.
And because of that incident, the later incident, the one where the brother actually passed away, he was actually arrested and charged and fired, right?
Yeah, he's got, I believe, 6 or 7 felonies on him because when he got word, supposedly from one of the other cops, that they were coming to get him for what had happened with the death in his apartment the night before. And see, there's even weird things with that. Embley, the canine officer, he was there before the ambulance made it to the apartment. And if you remember what I said, Jones's backyard, it's literally a parking lot in the hospital. They could have took that kid to the hospital quicker
Word.
than the ambulance got there than if Embley was able to come from wherever he was to the apartment. So there's like some weird things. They supposedly they were throwing stuff in the trash can, which that's where they found the police evidence bag that it was stolen from the evidence room, and the evidence bag had the evidence number and everything, and it was supposed to have meth in it because that's what the evidence number was registered to, as a bag of meth.
Damn.
Yeah, and so the overdose happened. He's got like 3 possessions. He's got tampering with the crime scene because they tried to clean shit up on that was there. I can get you the case number. I can send you the link so that you have it and you can read all of his charges that he's got. And
Wow.
that's the cool thing is a lot of Missouri's dockets open. He's trying to argue that his case needs dismissed under Good Samaritan law because he called to try and save the kid's life. So he's trying to argue that he should be protected.
Wow. He put the kid's life in danger, and then he wants to get off on protecting him. That's crazy.
Yeah, and so he thinks he should be protected, and his charges should be dropped because that goes to like the whole intention of the Good Samaritan law is that you don't try and hide that someone's overdosed around you because you're in fear of getting charged. It protects people in those situations. So say you and like someone and their buddy are doing some sort of bad drug, one of them overdoses. The Good Samaritan law is to protect the buddy that was also doing the drug so that he's not scared to help his friend. That's what it's intended for, not this guy that was preying on this family. Because
Word.
that's the way I really truly feel. I feel like that whole family is victims, and other people don't feel that way. But I know how addiction is, and these people were addiction. They were addicts. They were going through something. He was in a position of authority, and he preyed on that.
Right. So
And so,
he's still facing
go
these
ahead.
charges?
Yeah, he goes to court next month,
Really?
November. Yeah, I think it's his trial. Like the pre-trial thingy is the 12th of November, and then his actual trial is the like 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th. It's
Word.
that week. I plan to attend every day of that trial too.
Word.
Because I mean, he terrorized my town. There's people that swear to God that our overdose amounts have gone down since him and Embley have been gone.
So was Embley charged in that case as well?
Well, No, so Embley wasn't charged in that case, but it's really weird because another officer that was with Jones and Embley and all that was Burns Forsyth. Burns Forsyth, if you look, there's a place in like New Mexico or Arizona or something, and it's a little town, like some lake town or whatever, but they were busted because they had like a bunch of celebrities and shit that were working on their police department as like volunteer police officers. One guy even had a police car that he just kept at his house that had the police department's insignia on it, and he was a volunteer cop, only worked like 2 hours a year for the department. They actually were paying the department to hold the certificates
Wow.
that they were cops. This big thing came out in it, and it's like it had random people in it, like the lone sniper or whatever. No, not the lone survivor. That's what it is. Lone survivor, Marcus Luttrell, his name was on it and stuff like that. Like random names were on it. And then as I'm scrolling through this list, it said Burns Forsyth, which is one of the cops.
Wow.
So I think he was using, this is my theory, I think because it's a border state, I think he was using his police certificate and licensing as an excuse that he was, if he got stopped on his way out here for whatever he was doing, he could get from the border to here. And if he got stopped, he's a cop. They're not going to search him thin blue line.
Right. Makes sense. Yeah. True. No
And so
shit.
I think that Burns, Embley, and Jones had a little something that they were doing. And see, Embley and Forsyth, as far as I can tell, they haven't been directly charged in anything related to the deaths, but there still seems to maybe be other investigations going on behind the scenes because, like, the federal government moves slow, and I would think some of this stuff might be federal. And there was one point where I was supposed to meet with my attorney, and they were talking about. There was a bunch of people there, but I went to my attorney's office, and that was supposed to meet with some FBI people to tell the story of what they basically did to me. And see, that all stems from Embley because after, or I guess before he was ever here, he tased a man. It says anywhere from 10 to 18 times. All because the man made him suspicious because he drove through a parking lot at a gas station and then turned and went back out. So he used that as probable cause to stop the guy. Anyone can look it up. It's Hobbs, New Mexico, and his name is Robert Edward Embley. He's a law enforcement officer. It's all public record. And they tased the man. The city ended up paying the family $5 million in the death suit. And Embley was out here the whole time after that city in New Mexico was paying this $5 million, and he was out here harassing me.
Wow.
Everything in my videos. And then after Jones had his stuff, Embley was here until about December or January. And I've been told that Heatherly, the guy that took over the chief job after Jones, he's been featured on your channel before too. Heatherly, I was told, asked for the certificate of Embley's dog because there was an allegation that Embley was pocketing the training money for his dog, his canine, to go be trained. There was an allegation that Embley was pocketing that, and supposedly he packed his stuff all up all at once, like one fell swoop, and was just gone. So I mean, it's pretty bad. I guess he went back there. Then Lee County, New Mexico, which is the county in which Hobbs, the city which he worked for when he killed the man, they hired him to work at their police department. Well, that county, he was working for them when the federal charges came down on him for killing the man. He has some federal murder charges basically for killing him.
Right now, Embley does?
Yeah.
So Embley's facing murder charges. And then we have Chief Jones facing other charges. What's going on with Heatherly?
So Heatherly, it actually is really weird. They throw me under the bus. Like I started this big investigation into him. Heatherly is another chief that we had, and he took over after Jones. He kind of was, I tried to give him a chance. Like they've used it against me that I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt that, like the way I looked at it is anyone was better than William Jones. Word. And so I just figured, if someone was better, I tried to give him a chance, give him the benefit of the doubt. I tried to help him. I saw him driving with no headlights and at dark one night, and I messaged him and said, hey, your lights aren't on. I've got all of these messages, tried to be a nice guy, everything. And there was a day when an officer recorded a video of me, and I told them not to delete the video. I was going to be requesting it. Well, this even was before Heatherly was chief. This was when Jones was chief that the video was taken. So it wouldn't have fallen on Heatherly at all as a chief.
Word.
and he covered for them deleting the video. And so that pissed me off. I'm like, the behavior's still going on.
Word.
And he tried to say that he was having a hard time hiring officers. And from him saying he was having a hard time hiring officers, I commented on this Facebook post when he said that. And I said, well, it's because you're still condoning the same bad behavior. And as long as the shit's still going on, then no one's going to want to be involved in it. And he deleted my comment. So from there, it spiraled into, now you're violating my rights with this shit. So now I'm coming into City Hall to get the deleted comments. I'm going to do a records request for those. So when I went in that day to do the records request, Heatherly and me got back and forth. He called me a bunch of names, made fun of my teeth, made fun of the way I talk, I guess. Talked about my parenting over my child that was with me, but I didn't go there expecting to have an interaction with him like that. You know, I was going in there to do a records request, and he called me a bunch of names. I called him some names. He tried to goat me into the elevator, and I definitely think he was going to try and hurt me if I got in that elevator with him. You can kind of see it in the video.
I shared that video as
And
well. I remember that.
yeah, and from there, I went back the next day to turn in my complaint, because I got a complaint for him that day when me and him were going back and forth. And when I went in to turn in my complaint, well, he arrested me. When he arrested me, he gave me 2 tickets. One for calling the city admin a moron like 2 months prior, which was like, I don't even know if he was the chief then. I think they were like in the back room talking about me, and the city admin was like, yeah, Ryan called me a moron one time. Well, we'll get him for that too, fighting words, because they tried to charge me under Chaplitsky versus New Hampshire, which is the dumbest thing in the world. I made him feel stupid, I think, for that. But they charged me for calling the city admin a moron and for me calling him a fat piece of shit. So I got two there. Well, I got called into the next council meeting by the mayor and the council because they wanted to talk to me about what had happened, because it was pretty egregious, and I think they knew that he had fucked up by arresting me. And so I was picking up my daughter, and when they called me, you know, to start talking about it, because all the other citizens in town were talking about it at the council meeting, they were going up and talking about they didn't like his behavior. And from there, my mom, she went up to go speak, but they weren't going to let my mom speak about on my behalf for me because I wasn't in town. So they actually voted at the council to allow my mom to speak for me, even though I had already told her everything I wanted her to say for me if I didn't make it back in time. Well, I happened to be pulling into town when they were saying that, you know, giving my mom a hard time. So I just went to City Hall, and I walk in. They're like, well, he's here now. So I literally walked up there, said my piece as I was walking out. I said, have a good one, Heatherly. Just like, you know, smart ass, you know, kind of tone to me, but I said it quiet enough, and there was nobody else doing anything. Well, my mom walked out behind me, and as she was walking out, she called him a piece of shit herself. She said, you're a piece of shit, something like that. Well, from there, he got mad, went in there, allegedly told the 2 officers he had there that night in front of their wives that he didn't care what they did as long as they got me. They could even make stuff up, but he wanted someone to get Ryan, like whatever they had to do. And so I'm like, well, all right, if that's what I guess I'm on my toes now, right? Well, it was the next meeting after that, it was alleged that there was going to be conversation of his job because his probationary period was coming up, and his behavior was kind of not something they were enjoying, you know? So from there, I didn't go to that meeting because I'd been warned that he had a ticket and was going to arrest me if I showed up because when he threatened my mom with arrest for calling him a piece of shit and got mad at me that meeting before, I would walk out. Well, I guess he was so festering on the fact that I had stood up for my mom and that my mom called him that. They had commented at my work's Facebook and like slandered my mom and stuff like that because she works at the same law office I do. And so all of that stuff piled up. Well, I guess he didn't get what he wanted from it. So he wrote me a ticket for what I said. Wow. So he was going to arrest me for another disorderly if I showed up to that council meeting. Well, he ended up getting fired that night. So that ticket never got turned in. And it got voided by the new chief, who, in my opinion, he's been a pretty good chief as far as I'm concerned. The town doesn't feel like you're a prey with pirates trying to take your money and take your freedom. It doesn't feel like that anymore. It feels like all the cops are from the community. I went to high school with a bunch of the cops. The chief lives in the community, you know, a couple blocks from the city hall itself. You know, he's always within calling distance if one of his officers was to absolutely need him. That's more like what you want in a small town. We're only 4,500 people. Well, Heatherly took it upon himself after getting fired to message the, I guess I didn't know any of this. This came out in the investigation, but he messaged the clerk at the police department after he was fired, or his wife did, and the clerk, I guess, sent him screen like pictures that she took on her cell phone of my tickets and then sent them to them. So my tickets had no redactions to them whatsoever. All my personal info and everything was in my tickets. Christopher Heatherly's wife then took those tickets and posted them on the internet on this Facebook group that used to be our town's PD's Facebook group. And that when they took that Facebook group, they changed it. Anyone can go find it. It's called Police Department Facts and Truths on Facebook. And they used that to slander everybody. And they posted my tickets on there and they were unredacted. Well, I just basically, I have the screenshots, or I'm like, I had them blocked at the time, and people were sending me screenshots of what they were posting with my tickets and the comments people were saying. So I unblocked the page, and I unblocked her, and I went on there and I commented my piece like, hey, this is not legal. There's a difference between public and private, and you're posting private stuff now. And I said, you're starting to push a fine line, and I guess we'll see how it works out for you. And I literally left it at that. She called me pencil dick and shit like that because I guess maybe her husband talked about my privates. I'm not saying I do or don't, but her husband grabbed my privates. And I'd say he fondled me when he arrested me. And now she, on numerous occasions, talked about my dick. Wow. And so, yeah, and so she just, is making these posts and stuff like that. And I basically told her, we'll see how it plays out. I left it alone. I guess 8 or so months went by, and all of a sudden they both have 4 charges. They have two harassments each, and 2 misuse of official information by a public official. And I'm one of 4 victims, but they're hyper focused on me. If you go on to that police department, Facts and Truths, or Truths and Facts, whatever it is, you'll see that they even most recently, they posted about their charges. They've tried to say that the only reason they have the charges is because a criminal that Chris Heatherly arrested, a criminal that he arrested has an axe to grind and can't let it go. And that's why they're charged. They're innocent. They don't even know how it got past the investigative phase. And then they start talking trash on the prosecutor. Well, if you look at my videos, I was charged by the prosecutor on wrongful stuff from Emily's stuff, in my opinion. So the prosecutor's not doing me any favors. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Well, I didn't even have a hand in their investigation. The deputy that investigated it, that did the warrants on their Facebook, on the police department Facts and Truths page and everything, he got everything, from as far as I could tell from the probable cause, he got everything he needed from that search warrant on that Facebook page.
Wow.
And so I had nothing to do with it, but they're like hyper focused on me and slandering me. And like, he's tried to use it and say that I'm the reason he can't keep jobs. The only thing I've ever done is called and redressed my grievances about him being a law enforcement officer. And whatever a city does after that, that's on them.
Right.
I can't make any government official do anything. I am only one person. And so I do make it a point. I will honestly admit that I will make it a point that if I hear Christopher Heatherly's working at such and such, I've called and said, this is the type of officer you have, blah, 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 blah. And from that point, it's up to them. But we all have that right as Americans.
Mm-hmm. And you're not the first person that has done that. Followed a cop, because cops will lie when they apply. I know maybe sometimes some departments probably know who's a bad cop, what he's done, how many lawsuits he's caused, but a lot of times that shit goes they sweep it under the rug, and there's protections that allow cops to hide what they've done. Other departments are not allowed to tell this department that you're applying to. So do cops slip through the cracks? I don't believe they slip through the cracks. I think they're walked through the giant loopholes sometimes. And it does take someone like you to call and let them know you have a bad cop working at your department. So a lot of this has happened to you specifically because of what they've done to you. And there's another cop.
But it gets worse.
Okay, go ahead.
It gets worse, though. Heatherly, he was the chief after our town in Leadwood, which you did a video on him when he was in Leadwood, because he basically found a new target with this guy named Blake. Blake was the me of Leadwood. It was his new target. Well, Heatherly ended up losing his job, but in the midst, before he lost his job, he had gotten into a tussle with a woman, and the woman ended up dislocating his shoulder or causing some sort of shoulder damage to him, where he had to go on medical leave or whatever, take workman's comp. And she actually took his taser and ran off with it. And I heard they never found his taser.
Fuck.
Like, supposedly, if you're near Leadwood, Missouri, there's a taser out there somewhere. And they never recovered of Christopher Heatherly's. Well, from there, he's gone and worked at another sheriff's department as a bailiff. Well, his wife, their attorney, they tried to slander me in this statement and say that he's getting fired from all these jobs because I'm calling these jobs, they feel like, and that's why he's getting fired. And that even his most recent job at whatever the sheriff's department was down by the Lake of the Ozarks, whatever it was, that the reason that he can't keep the job is because possibly my phone calls to them. Well, then she goes to the council meeting the next Monday, and I got a video of the meeting sent to me where she's telling the council that it's shame on them. Her husband hurt himself on duty working for them. He deserves a Purple Heart, and they should give him a Purple Heart because of what he did. And shame, shame, shame on them. He can't even work right now. He just recently had to leave his job at whatever that sheriff's department was because he can't pull back the slide on his gun due to the shoulder damage. So is it me or is it the shoulder damage that he can't keep his job from?
Right.
She can't even keep her story straight. And I've got that all recorded because I honestly feel like they just put stuff out there because they think that no one can do anything to them in the justice system, but they're going to use the justice system against everybody.
Right. Right. There is another cop that I wanted to talk to you about. This one, I believe, is a crazy story because this cop was used by Jones, Chief Jones, to harass you. He impounded your motorcycle. The motorcycle was damaged. This cop ended up getting fired and ended up working at Walmart at the deli. A picture was taken of this cop working at the deli. It was sent to you, and we were able to highlight this cop who harassed you, impounded your motorcycle, ended up screwing with the wrong person, and had to go work at Walmart in the deli. You want to tell us a little bit about Officer Penrod?
Yeah, that one's actually sad to me, to be honest. I had no problem with Penrod. He was always respectful to me when I saw him out and about. He was always very polite. Never would I have thought he would have done what he did that night. But on the 9th, I got some charges from Embley. It was the 25th of August is when the indictment came from Embley making up charges on me. And then everything kind of spiraled from there. I called the prosecutor on the 15th because I didn't know what was going on with these charges that Embley had made. I literally have a recording of me asking the prosecutor for help. I'm like, they're ramping stuff up. Please help me. Keep these officers away from me with what they're trying to do. They're trying to make up, BS crimes to take my freedom. And from there, it was, I'll see what I can do from the prosecutor pretty much. That night, there was a council meeting. It was like a Friday night, and they had a weird, special council meeting that night. So I decided to ride my bike into town, my Harley. And I have a vintage 1990 Harley Davidson, and it's a FXR. They only made it for 10 years from 1984 to 94. And then mine's a Florida State Highway Patrol bike. So it's got it's a special bike, And I was in town on it. Was 32 at the time. Any law on motorcycle permits here in Missouri, they only really have restrictions until you're 16, maybe 18. But I was 32. And so it was one of those things that I was at City Hall, I'm at the council meeting, and it starts to get dark. I decide I'm going to go home, and I go to leave town. As soon as I left town, I guess, all of the cops followed me out. Well, I got stuck behind some train tracks, and there's a train coming through. So I'm sitting there, the train goes through. I go to start my bike after the end of the train, and I go to start to move, and I see berries and cherries behind me. So I basically just pull 5 feet over and stop, and it's Penrod, and he's telling me that I'm not legal to ride my motorcycle this close to dark. It's literally still light out. I could have seen all the way home. I only live 3 minutes from town. I could have seen all the way home without a headlight, without any lights. And he's telling me that I can't have my bike out right now because it's 30 minutes before sunset and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not legal to even ride it home. So I already knew where it was going, that they were going to try and impound my bike. So from that point, I'm already trying to find laws on the phone for what he was telling me. But I'm I tend to read laws really, as thorough as I can when someone tells me a law. So I was pretty aware of the motorcycle law he was talking about relating to the permits. Well, we go back and forth for a little bit. He decides basically that he's going to tow my bike. And I showed him the law, then told him what he was doing was not legal. He reads the law on my phone, on his phone. When he gets to the point that exempts me because of my age from what he was trying to do to me, he reads over it as blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, they're using you. They're going to use you to take my bike, but you're going to be the one that takes the punishment for what they're doing. And he's like, I'm not going to argue with you, mister. And said my last name and all that crap. And they ended up taking my bike that night. Well, that next day, I went in to try and get it because he told me numerous times I could come get it out of impound the next day. Well, City Hall was closed. He knew City Hall was closed. He just wasn't trying to have that argument the night before. Oh, and while they were doing my bike, like I said, all the officers followed me out. Chief William Jones got in Embly's son's truck, which had dark tinted windows, and they pulled up on my stop and parked across the street from my stop and watched the whole thing. I'm sure recorded it on phones and stuff like that, what they were doing to me. I truthfully feel that they thought because of how I act in situations that I would get riled up and they'd be able to put hands on me, because Embly was just around the corner in town where he just had like maybe a 10-second drive up the road, but you couldn't really see him from where I was. I think he was going to jet up there and come whoop my ass with Penrod, and if I did anything, basically.
Word.
And I'm the type of person that if I know I have the upper hand, or if I know someone else is messing up super bad, I'm not going to sit there and poke at them. I'm going to sit back and just watch them dig their own hole. But there's times when, like, I'll talk extra with the stuff with them because it's funny to me. Well, they took my bike. He calls me the next day, even on video. I tell him when I get there, I'm like, I told you, man, they were using you. I told you they were going to throw you under the bus and use you. He's like, I don't want to argue with you. Let's just get your bike back, blah, blah, blah. So they kept trying to get me to sign the papers because he called me at 9 o'clock at night. I couldn't see anything on my bike at 9 o'clock. It was dark out. So I didn't want to sign any papers because I didn't want to remove myself of holding them liable. I didn't want to sign anything, agree to anything. And so I just wanted my bike. So I literally, I signed it and then put duress beside it because they were making me sign in order to receive my property.
Word.
And then I got my bike. I'm sitting there going over it, which you can see in the video. And as I'm looking over, my mom pointed out that there was a dent in my gas tank that wasn't there before. It looked like it fell over, to be completely honest. And it would make sense because they put my bike in gravel and I have taller suspension on the back end. So it makes the lean angle higher. So the kickstand in gravel, all that extra weight on it probably collapsed.
Right.
Yeah. And so because when we got there, I watched them unload it and I watched them put it there. And when I got there the next day, it had a board underneath my kickstand that I didn't watch them do when they were there the night before. So I think it fell over and they knew that it fell over. Yeah. Well, that in itself, Penrod was employed there for maybe a month after that happened, but I want to say it was like the next council meeting, an executive session happened, and Penrod then all of a sudden is no longer a cop. Like I said, I was kind of sad because he was actually a cop that I felt like was a better cop that they just used. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe
like
that
he had always been somewhat nice to me.
Maybe that was their way of getting rid of a good cop. They used him.
Well, and that's
right.
Then that's kind of my thought too. I mean, all cops, it seems like they all tend to follow the blue line. So I mean, there is good cops, but it's to an extent. I always say that to people is you can only trust certain officers so far. I mean, I've known some cops since I was a kid, so it gives me a little more trust in them since they know me to my core. They've known me since I was, in my opinion, a shitty kid, little punk, to where I'm at now in life. And I give most of them the benefit of the doubt. There's some cops I went to high school with. They've known me. They tend to treat me like a human being. That's all anyone wants, is to be treated like a human being at the end of the day.
Right.
You're not my boss. You're not my daddy. You don't pay my bills. Don't talk to me like you have some sort of perceived authority over me. That's where a lot of people feel the disrespect from them. That's where they lose us.
Cops seem to do that a lot to the people. Talk to them in a condescending way, being aggressive and trying to stir shit up. And people don't like being talked down to, not by their family members, not by their neighbors, not by anybody at the grocery store, not by the people at the DMV, and not by the cops. People do not like to be talked down to, and cops seem right.
Especially if we're paying their salaries.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. It's bad when you get disrespected. If you go to the fast food restaurant, you go to whatever that's a private business, it sucks when they disrespect you, Walmart, whatever. But when we're paying these people's salaries, to me, that adds a little bit extra to it. It's like, what the hell? You think you have this right to talk to me this way? I'm your boss. And somewhere along the lines, they've lost that we are their boss. We pay their salaries. And they tag these people like if you stand up to it, you're a sovereign citizen. It's
Yep.
like, that's how am I a sovereign citizen? I pay my taxes. My vehicle's licensed. I follow the laws I don't even necessarily agree with. I think that there's laws people push, and it's like sometimes I'm like, ooh, that's really pushing on the line, you know what I'm saying? But for me, I like that. That's how we don't find the boundaries, is unless you push on the line.
Man, I expected to do this interview and look at Penrod's story and use it as an example for cops not to let their supervisors or other cops push them in a direction to harass someone, violate the rights, because it could be your job hanging in the balance. And I'm not gonna lie, I expected to use this interview as an opportunity to ridicule a cop for working at Walmart after violating somebody's rights or
It's no,
something like that. But it turns
it's
out to
sad.
be more kind of a sad story, right?
It's sad. It's really sad. It's really sad. I mean, and the guy, and I know the guy's daughter. She's a really nice girl, but it seems like maybe he doesn't even have much of a relationship with her because he's kind of burned. Like, she has to wear what her dad's made for her in this small community. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, my video went viral in my town, and everyone knows that's her dad. Like,
Hmm.
I feel bad about that too. She wears that, so she
Hmm.
has to, like. I feel like that's part of it. Is like she almost had to feel like she was separating herself from her father so that she didn't have to wear the bad behavior he's doing, and that's sad too to me. It's like the whole way around. Officers don't often probably think about that aspect of what they're doing. Because
True.
at the end of the day, phones bring everything to the light. These cameras that everyone has back in school when you're doing math, you're told by your teacher you're not always going to have a calculator in your pocket. Well, now we do with our phones. They damn sure didn't think we would have cameras.
Right. No shit. No
You
shit.
know,
Man, look at cops. If you're looking at this man right now, do not fuck with him. You will probably you'll probably lose your job. You know what I'm saying? This guy will hound your ass if you go try to work at another department. He'll make sure that you'll know who he is. Do not fuck with Roach J. If you see him out there, do not violate his rights. Take it from me, man. Don't do that to him. You'll be doing
no,
it
and
to
honestly,
yourself.
honestly, it's not even bad though, man. Like, I went to a parade today. Our town's having a festival that we have every year called the Color Fest. The chief of police in town, he drives by, he gives me a big wave. Super nice guy. Like I said, I've known him since I was a kid. He was a county cop when I was a kid, and me and him didn't always get along.
Word.
He had an incident with my dad when I was younger that basically either he's lying or my mom's lying, and I don't think my mom's lying. So it's like, but I just chop it up to he was young. I mean, he always treated me with respect when talking to me. I'd call him a piece of shit. I'd go in on him like I do, and he came back at me with, "If you ever want to talk and hear my side, I'm willing to talk to you." And I always thought about that. And then when the Jones stuff happened, he would comment on posts with the stuff Jones was doing, and he seemed equally outraged. He didn't work in the community at the time. He was a deputy or something for a neighboring county, but he saw the bad behavior of a law enforcement officer and called it out.
Word.
And so it was like that. That's how you earn my respect in this world, is you do things that are respectable.
Word.
And it's like I'm walking through the festival, and one of the cops that I grew up around, "How you doing, Ryan? How you been, man?" "I'm doing good, buddy. Hope you're doing good too. Stay safe." It's not just always like a straight disrespect from me towards law enforcement, because I really do think we have a reason. We need cops. We need law enforcement. Otherwise, it'll just be turmoil, in my opinion. I believe in law. I hold the Constitution as the highest law of the land. I think there's morals, and then there's laws, and I think that the Constitution is what separates America from like China and all these other places. That's the one thing we have. So I hold that really highly. My grandpa escaped, the Soviets as they were coming through Austria. My grandpa got his family out in the night. He instilled on me and my brother how important it is that we have the Constitution. So it's something that always needs to be fought for. Well, my brother, he went to the military. I couldn't do that stuff because I'm disabled. One thing that God did bless me with is a big mouth, though. So
And
I
some
mean, my brother, he
intelligence.
always tells me, yeah, my brother always tells me, he's like, "Man, you couldn't fight the way I fought, but you do it your own way."
Yeah, you do. Recently, there was a story from a neighboring town in Troy, Missouri, and a man was arrested. His name was Andy. His wife was arrested, Aaliyah. And I woke up one morning and I seen a text message, and I watched the video immediately. I dropped everything I was doing because this arrest was egregious, and I shared the video. We showed what the cops did, and I interviewed Andy and his wife, and the very next day, you, Midwest Accountability, Illinois Tyrant News, you guys went out there to Troy, Missouri. You guys did some records requests. I seen that you did a records request. You got it right away, and you wanted to find out more about that cop. You got his arrest records of DUA. You found out and texted me and sent me the information that that cop is an actual training officer. I believe that cop puts the people in danger. And I got to say thank you for sending me that story, that video. Thank you for acting immediately, doing your part to try to get justice for Andy and Aaliyah. As soon as we put out the video, the department put out a statement basically backing up the cop. You guys know what they do. They cops
When
blame.
they didn't put the statement out like it just happened. Like that's the thing. This all happened in
Right.
July, and I just saw the video. So it took us bringing this to light, and then them deciding, oh, this is turning into something. We need to make a statement. They were
Mm-hmm.
hoping that what they did to Andrew or Andy, they were hoping that it wasn't going to ever become a thing. Is what I'm pretty sure.
Right. It took, us working together, knowing what we can do, using the court of public opinion. Hopefully, we could try to get some justice for Andy and his wife, and more people can see what's going on. And thank you, bro, for not just sending the story, but doing your part to go out there and help them out as well. I really do appreciate your type of work, the way you approach all of this. I think you're smart. When cops mess with you, they have no idea of what they're doing and who they're messing with. And I got to say that I hope that I get to work with you in the future. I hope that we can hopefully guide other channels that want to hold police accountable. We can guide them in the right direction. I'm talking to people and they're sending me ideas, tips, and I'm trying to use that and spread that as well. And like I said, I think you have an amazing approach to the kind of activism that you do. You ask for records, specific type of records.
That's another thing is the records. Like when I went in for the case with Andy, the records I asked for, I have a reason, and oftentimes it sounds crazy, but the records that we asked for relating to the case stuff, I had a feeling they would turn those down due to the investigation. But I had a sub purpose. I requested anything related to a DUI that Pluma has made because, like you had said earlier, he's where he's a training officer or he's like a instructor at a school or something as for a DUI.
Right.
In my experience, there's normally a reason that certain cops get those jobs because they excel at writing DUIs or whatever it is that they're doing. Well, any cop I've known that's excelled at DUIs, it's because they have a certain technique, which normally means they prey on people they think won't take the case to trial and actually fight it. So if they think you're someone that's just gonna plea out, they're gonna get you for the DWI and make you fight it because you have to prove your innocence in that.
Right.
And so he gets all these different people that he charges with DUIs that he knows don't have the means to fight it. They're just going to get a public defender, and the public defender is going to get him a deal, and they're going to accept the deal, and it's going to be a conviction on his record. I mean, this man, I sent you the text of all of the DUIs and stuff he's written.
Fuck.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And I guarantee you a lot of those people probably weren't do a DUI. You know what I'm saying? Like
Word.
I don't really know how else to put it, but so a lot of those people I bet weren't as drunk as he or even drunk at all. Because I mean, it's the same thing. The only reason I know that officers do that is because I had a state trooper do that to me when I was like 18 years old, 19 years old. He pulled me over, told me he could smell weed, searched my car, didn't find no weed, gave me a breathalyzer. I passed the breathalyzer, gave me the nystagmus test. I passed, the horizontal and vertical nystagmus. And I told him I'm disabled, can't do balance test. He's like, well, I got one more I'm going to give you. It's not balance related. Made me go out into the front of his car with the sirens flashing and stuff and tells me to tilt my head back and put my arms down to my side and start counting to 100 or something like that. I'm like, no, that's balance. What happens if I can't do it? He goes, well, then you're going to jail. I fought that ticket for a year and a half. I blew zeros. I mean, they strip searched me at the jail. He stood over my shoulder while I peed, all that stuff. They
Damn.
dropped my charges the day before jury trial.
Wow. Yeah, it's what they do.
And I pled guilty to a license plate infraction because I had a cover over my license plate, but that's irrelevant because there was so much snow on the road. The whole back end of my car was covered in snow anyways. He kicked my bumper when he walked up to my car to knock the snow off so he could see my license plate. So it's like he knew what he was doing. He saw I had a little red Eclipse with a big 3-inch exhaust. It would look like something from Fast and the Furious, you know? So he saw a kid at 11:30 at night driving in that with tinted windows. He's like, boom, got one.
Word.
You know, and so it's like that's opened my eyes to the dirty tricks some of these cops play, and it's scary. And I think that's what gets a lot of people is they hear some of the threats and they get scared. I'm willing to take some of these things to trial because I enjoy court. It's fun to me. I grew up around lawyers. I grew up, my mom's been a paralegal my whole life, so I've grown up around this stuff. It's fun to me. I like watching, you know, that type of stuff on TV. I follow certain court cases. It's what I enjoy doing as a person, but it scares a lot of people. And I think that's the biggest issue that gets me is these cops that instill this the scaredness into people, you know. And it's even Andy. I've talked to Andy a few times, and what they did to him is pretty egregious. But all of the charges in his case that are anything that they could maybe try, like they said that they stopped him for his license plate because I believe it's the whole right to travel thing, right? Well, he has no charges from that. His charges are the resisting arrest and the assault on the officer and then damaging a police car. So it's everything that after he got out of the car. The stop itself is irrelevant. Nothing came from the actual stop at this point.
Wow. So it's possible that they can all be thrown out because of that, you think?
They all should be thrown out, in my
Right.
opinion.
Right.
The man stepped out of his car, and when he stepped out of his car, the officer put hands on him. A reasonable human, when someone goes to grab you that you don't know why they're touching you, is going to pull back. He literally pulled back and had tasers at him and got shot by tasers. And then he stood through those, was never in arm's reach of anybody. The other cop comes up, tases him. He goes to sit down, has his hands, you know, down, never reached out at any of them. They tell him to roll over to his stomach. He's like, stop tasing me. I mean, I don't know where he assaulted them even at, because like that's one of the things I've told him is that in his situation, I don't think he's warranted to be charged for the assault.
Right.
I don't think he's warranted to be charged for the resisting. He messed that fucking cop car up. He beat the hell out of the inside of that cop.
Yeah.
I don't know where he even got some of the wires that were dangling in the pictures.
That's
like
crazy.
If you haven't posted those pictures, you should post those pictures. But
Right.
the way I look at that too is, as a man, if someone was doing what they did to his wife and I'm
Right.
in handcuffs in the backseat of a car, I'm going to attack anything that's in my vicinity to try and defend my wife or my you know,
Right.
child's mother, whatever. And so I mean, a reasonable man's going to do exactly what he did. And I think most laws, don't they come down to if a reasonable person would act as such, it's normally an allowed thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the fighting words doctrine even is, right? If it's something like a reasonable person's going to respond in such a way, then you're not supposed to say that type of stuff to them. Now, I think that starts to infringe, but that's the purpose of that doctrine.
Right.
You know, you're not supposed to go up to someone and say, oh, I'm going to do all X, Y, and Z to your girlfriend or your mom or whatever, because a reasonable person's going to punch you in the face.
Right. We're going to go ahead and end this interview, but I want to say thank you for your tremendous work. And I plan to do more interviews with Roach J. I plan to work with him. Roach J has a way of looking at things, just like right now, talking about Andy's case. That shit is extremely important to point out. We ended up working together on this because it's so close to Ryan's house, Ryan's area. I would like to pick your brain some more, maybe do some live reviews of videos or cases where you're able to pinpoint things. You're a smart dude. You know some language of the courts, you know some litigation. You know how to look at some of these things and maybe give an insight maybe of how some of these channels that get arrested, how they can approach these types of things. We live in an age of information. It takes some of us to get together and try to figure some of this stuff out so that we could put the information out for you guys the correct way, the right way. We will make mistakes along the way, but we'll try to fix them and not repeat mistakes. And bro, I gotta say thank you, dude. I think you're a fucking smart, wise dude, and hopefully we can pick your brain and share it with the world.
Well, for sure, man. And I'm always here. That's my big thing is you helped my community more than you could ever know. We were being attacked by monsters as far as I'm concerned. And your videos gave that some extra eyes. And so like I told you that, when I talked to you before, 3 hours of my area, if I ever need to go file a FOIA, if I ever need to go anything, because I don't file like Missouri, we have sunshine law. I don't file under sunshine law. I'm filing under federal free information.
Right.
Like it's a federal law that I'm filing under. I don't care about all that state bull crap, how the states interpret it, whatever. I'm filing under the federal law. I know what's a public record. I know what's not. If we got to go in the back and forth later on down the road, then fine. But I don't like seeing people get bullied. I don't like seeing tyrants, get their peepees hard by bullying people. I just don't like that crap. So if I can poke back at the bear a little bit, then I don't mind doing that to help people. And so if anyone ever has something that's close to where I'm at, I'm just north of St. Louis. If anybody ever needs help with anything, I'll drive there and poke at their cops a little bit. I'm only a man. I can't make anybody act out of their own skin. So whatever an officer does is on them.
Word.
I just use my words and exercise my rights.
Well, folks, there you have it. The man that dismantled the police department that tried to pick on him, and he seemed to single-handedly dismantle that apartment. A lot of it was their own wrongdoing, but don't mess with this man. Hey, Roach J, we'll see you again soon. We'll do some more of this. Maybe we'll do some live streams as well, because you're on point, bro.
Yeah, whenever.
Hell yeah.
Whenever.
Cool.
All right, be easy.
Thank you,
Nice
brother.
seeing you, buddy.
Thank you, bro.
Always.